What's going on, people? Welcome back to another Get It Bucket podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron. As always, I'm joined by my guy, Kev. Kev, what's going on, brother?
I'm doing amazing, man. It's been a great week so far. We had a great opening round of games this first weekend in the round of 64 and the round of 32. I know we'll talk about in a second, but I can't complain, man. Life is always good. How about yourself, though?
I'm all right, man. My Blue Devils, everybody counting them out. Shit, I can't front. I didn't before that we knew what bracket, what region to be in. So maybe they could be a shot they could lose early, but they're in the Sweet 16 and all that. Kev, I know you said all that you feeling good and all that, but I know you're not really feeling good right now. You know you're not feeling good. Sparty got bounced in the second round and all that. I know you got some stuff to talk about. So floor is yours. Say what you got to say. Before you go, show is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek, one place for all your ticket needs. $20 off the board network, all caps to get $20 off. And if you appreciate everyone who's tuning in. I know people coming in the show. If you got any questions, just drop them in the comment section, and we'll love to answer them and all that. But Kev, floor is yours.
Man, so obviously we lost, right? We lost to Carolina. It was a rough season. Had high expectations. We were preseason ranked number 4 going into it. Everybody loved our guard play, not knowing our front court was going to kind of hinder us, and our guard play was very inconsistent outside of Tyson Walker. Obviously, Jaden Akins played pretty well this past weekend, so I got to salute him because when it mattered, he stepped up. But I just want to say, I still firmly believe in Coach Izzo, and I know a lot of people like to say, oh, well, Izzo hasn't won a national championship in 20-something years, and 24 years it's been, which is fine, right? But I got to say this. As a fan of Michigan State, you're a fan of Duke, right? This goes to Kentucky fans, or Carolina fans, Kansas fans, UConn fans. No matter what people tell y'all, winning a national championship, especially in college basketball, it might be the toughest chip to win in all the sports, regardless of level. Because as we know, why do people love the tournament in the first place? Because of the unpredictability, right? That's the first thing. Then on top of it's a single elimination, it's do or die every single game, right? You lose this game, your season is over with. And so to me, I still have complete faith in my coach. He had a great post-game presser after we lost to North Carolina saying that I'm gonna start getting back to deep runs or I'm gonna die trying. And you can see that visibly he was worn out. You can see this season took a toll on him. And I think for the better, if I'm being honest. I think he needed that self-evaluation to be like, okay, I gotta operate differently in this new era of NIL and the transfer portal. And it's the same thing for Coach Cal at Kentucky. We'll talk about them in a minute though, right? But as far as my program in the Michigan State Spartans, I promise I'm not worried whatsoever. I know Izzo's time is running out, just like it is for Kelvin Sampson, just like it is for Bill Self, just like it is for John Calipari. Their time is coming to an end. But I can say with the foundation that we have in place, whether it's Jeremy Fears, Trey Holloman, Xavier Booker, a couple other guys, Cohen Carr, I still firmly believe in my program. And I think, again, this offseason is going to be one of the more pivotal ones in the history of Izzo's tenure and Michigan State basketball as a whole. And so I just had to say that I'm not worried about my program at all. Again, this year, it might have been what most people look at as a step back, but I look at it as like a real slap in the face in a good way. Like somebody needed to shake Izzo up, right? And be like, hey, wake up and adapt or get left behind. Because that's where we're at right now in the collegiate world, in all sports. So to me, shout out to UNC. They turned up that notch. They clearly look like a team that can win a national championship. I thought we showed great fight. Obviously, we played amazing in like the first 10, 12 minutes.
Yeah,
but
game.
UNC was just on fire. And I definitely want to salute my seniors. Definitely Tyson Walker. Shout out to Westbury, New York for sure. Malik Hall, AJ Hogarth, Madi Sissoko, all them guys. David Smith, even Steven Izzo, they all held it down, especially Tyson Walker, man. Like, I can't even say enough about him. Like, I tweeted the other day, when we got him 3 years ago, I thought he was just going to be an average transfer. Honestly speaking, and 3 years later, I mean, he carried us in hella games throughout his career, right? This dude was at Northeastern. A lot of people have no idea where Northeastern is at. It's in Massachusetts, though. But shout out to T-Walk, held it down. Looking forward to see, how the rest of his basketball career plays out. But as a whole, I just got to say, man, I know, again, Izzo's time is running out. But I do think for some reason, he feels like in order for him to be fully validated, he has to win that second national championship. Me personally, I don't feel like that. I think he's stamped regardless because he's already been to hella Final Fours, which a lot of coaches will never touch. But at the same time, I do understand where he comes from because getting one is already hard because, let's be honest, too, it's only 7 active head coaches right now that have a chip. It's only 7. It's Izzo, it's Bill Self, it's Rick Pitino, it's Scott Drew, it's Danny Hurley, it's Tony Bennett, and it's Coach Cal. It's only 7, and it's a tough thing to do. And on top of that, I believe in Izzo firmly because the last few years, we've played our best basketball in the NCAA tournament. We've saved our best basketball for the tournament. So to me, I love the direction we're heading. And again, I just think this is a major wake-up call for not just Izzo, but our entire program as a whole. And I'm looking forward to Jeremy Fears getting back to lead the charge next year. But I'm excited for what the future brings, man. This year was tough, but we can't put too much stock into it, in my opinion. I think, again, it's going to be a major, major news flash for Coach Izzo, but I'm very excited for the near future.
So, what are some things you feel like he needs to adapt? I don't even essentially say adapt to because I feel like he's kind of been relatively, he's adapted and all that. And it's so what are some changes that he need to happen next year to feel like you said he's feeling good, but to feel even better because this year where there was a lot of people that with all the guards you have, right? We talked heavily about the guards, and we know how important guard play is in March, especially in March.
Mm-hmm.
But what changes does he need to do to make sure that you're not having the rocky season you had, and it's not just all right. Well, it's March and maybe they'll pick it up. No, you have a 28 win season. You're on the upper echelon of the Big Ten. You feel you're not stressed out every game. You're feeling good, really good going into the tournament, not just relying. Oh yeah, we got Izzo, we'll figure it out. Having that consistent season that you had in previous years. What does Izzo need to do to get back to that level where you're atop the Big Ten and all that? Because you got some new teams coming in. So what does he need to do to get back to that top level Izzo type of team?
The main thing, what you're going to hear from anybody that talks about this, is you have to let the transfer portal be your friend. The portal can't be your enemy. You feel me? And when I say that, I'm not even saying that you got to build your roster like Muss did down in Arkansas. Their entire team came from the transfer portal. I'm not even saying you got to do that. You can still – the blueprint right now in college basketball is what Danny Hurley is doing at UConn and what Bill Self is doing at Kansas. And obviously I know Kansas had a tough year this year. They lost in the second round to Gonzaga, mostly because of injuries and lack of depth and lack of shooting at that. But the key is simply this. You can still recruit your high school recruiting classes just like they would do any other year, right? But you have to assess your roster, and whatever shortcomings you feel like you have to address those via the transfer portal, right? And to me, Izzo does a great job of bringing in guards. Now it's time to get Michigan State big men back out there and get a wing, especially for next year too, because this year I think not having a wing really hurt us. I know not having a big was very detrimental, but not having a true 6'6", 6'7" playmaker that can knock down shots, get his own bucket when he needs to, no pun intended, and guard at a high level, I thought that was detrimental to us. Any team could use that. You look at AJ Storr, you look at Terrence Shannon, you look at Dalton Connect, you look at all these big-time players, Pele Larson for Arizona, right? Big wings that can make plays for themselves. You need that, right? And we haven't had that. It hasn't been too long. The last one we had was Max Christie. That was 2 years ago, right? So it's not a major drought, but I think having a dude like that is a necessity because if you look at the last few years, when we run into those wings I just named, AJ Hogarth had to guard them because he had to and also because he was just physically the strongest out of the guards to do so. But that's not really fair to him because he already has to run the team on the other end of the floor. So to me, shout out to my dog Pablo. We're going to talk about y'all Blue Devils, of course. And, of course, them Houston Cougars. But, again, the recipe is out there. Literally just recruit your players, just like John Shire. Recruit your players, but bring in the weaknesses that you see via the transfer portal. That's all Izzo has to do. And, again, you look at it, the last few years, our best players have been through the transfer portal. And the portal wasn't what it was as it is now, right? But you got Tyson Walker from Northeastern. You got Joey Hauser from Marquette. Those guys have been our 2 best players the past few years, uncoincidentally, right? If that's even a word. But that's all it is. And for Izzo, again, just realize where your roster is at. You have a great nucleus. Jeremy Fears, Trey Holloman, Xavier Booker, Cohen Carr, Jackson Kohler, Carson Cooper. Now it's about what do I need to do from there? I need to get another big man for depth purposes, and I need to get a wing. And you're good, a scoring wing at that. And you're good. And maybe another scoring punch because you might lose Jaden Akins. But at the same time, the recipe is out there. The blueprint is out there. Teams are going to have to start getting older. Even with this COVID year vanishing after next season, you still got to get older because you look at UConn, for instance, last year. Majority of those dudes, Danny Hurley recruited from the ground up. Sonogo, been there. Jordan Hawkins, been there. Andre Jackson, been there. This year, they added one transfer in Cam Spencer, and he changed everything for them. So I'm just saying,
it's crazy how that one transfer, like that was
everything.
like the icing on the top, and that changed everything.
And the craziest part about it was, Prezi, at first they wanted to go get Nick Timberlake for Kansas. And remember, he had a terrible year this year. He didn't translate at all coming over from Towson. And they missed on him. He went to Kansas, and they end up with Cam Spencer. And that you can make the case that could be a difference between them winning a national championship or not. You know what I'm saying? So for Izzo, it's just about embracing where the game is at today. And I think he has to a certain extent. He's just very lenient on seeing guys like it's a few dudes. I'll be honest. I'll say a name right now. Michi Johnson, I have no idea why he's in the transfer portal. Because this year at South Carolina, Lamont Paris let him take any shot that he wanted to with no hesitation, with no leash, nothing. He got to do whatever he wanted to. I was thinking about that, like, why would you transfer? Because no other rational coach, and I'm not saying Lamont Paris is unrational or irrational, no other coach is going to let him take the shots that he was taking this year. I'm sorry. I'm just being honest. But that's the nature of the beast right now. So to me, again, the blueprint's out there. You just got to follow it. Danny Hurley and Bill Self do it to the best. And I even look at Scott Drew to a certain extent. I know Scott Drew hasn't had the greatest tournament success since they won it, but he still pieced together some good teams. And so that's all it is, man. Get your high school recruiting classes, fill in the holes, pause with the transfer portal, and you're good every time.
Pablo, we got to get you on the pod, bro. We got to get you on the pod and all that.
Pablo, stop being I ain't gonna say it. Pablo knows. We'll get him on.
Yeah, we got to get Pablo on, but yeah, we'll transfer portal, just little things like that. We figured that out. They'll get back, kind of get to that physicality too. Michigan, have teams in the past with like Draymond and Darren Jackson. Just get those type of bigs too. Like it feels like, yeah, you got to get dogs. You really do need dogs and all that. And so let's before we get into the cycle through some news and all that, some coaching news. So we'll get into some new coaches that and it's crazy. It's crazy, right? The minute these teams lost,
coaches are gone.
Hired. It's crazy, right? Man. It's like the next 2 hours later you hear good one. Well, this guy is taking the Vanderbilt job and all that. So it's like it was like they were plotting. They were plotting to leave and all that. But a couple obviously, did we talk about Dusty Maine in Michigan last show?
We did.
Okay, so that's the big that one happened before, like right after we did our last pod. So that's the big one. Dusty May. The rumor was Louisville. And I think we all probably, it's probably Louisville and all that. And Louisville takes another L. And Louisville does not have a coach right now. They don't have a coach right now. So, they continue to be in shambles. But Michigan hired Dusty May. He is going to be the new head coach at Michigan. We talked about this before we started the pod. And we'll talk about it a little bit right now before we get into the other coaches that are taking jobs. But I get it. I get why he took Michigan. Like I said, we talked about it's like Michigan is a football school. Yeah, they care about hoop and all that because you saw like Michigan coming back, especially Juwan being there, 5'5", all that, and they were maybe getting back to being, the school in the 90s and all that. Didn't happen, tough few years and all that, but if he would have went to Louisville, all the pressure's on him. And we saw that with KP. It's too much. He just wasn't ready for that. Wasn't ready for that. And obviously, he was gone. But for Dusty, he's going to be kind of under the radar, like because Michigan they just won a natty, and the focus is always going to be to make sure that Ohio State doesn't win a chip and all that. So they're gonna have that's gonna be the focus, and that's what. So he's gonna actually go under the radar, allowed to build that program. They said they're going to be more lenient as far as the transferring and all, because it is a tough school, and that was always the gripe with Harbaugh and football. Was like, yo, you want me to win? Y'all need to be more lenient. Yeah, it's too tough and all that. So Dusty May taking over. He will be the new Michigan coach, leaving FAU. Final Four last season. He's had a great run at FAU and Boca, but now he's going to Ann Arbor, Michigan. So how do you feel about Dusty May going to Ann Arbor and be the new coach of the Michigan Wolverines?
It was a major surprise, like you just said, right? Most of us thought he was guaranteed Louisville at the minimum, right? And out of nowhere, the Woj bomb of all Woj bombs, he ends up at Michigan. And I do think it's a great fit just because, as you mentioned, right, Michigan, they're coming off a national championship with Jim Harbaugh. I know he left for the Chargers, whatever. But I think the biggest thing for Michigan is that they just need a culture reset. And one thing Dusty May clearly did at Florida Atlantic was he set the culture there. He laid the foundation. And to me, Juwan kind of just got away from it just because, again, the biggest issue with Juwan was he had the admissions problems. And also, too, when he would strike out on his top tier options, he never had a plan B option, right? You miss out on Caleb Love, you miss out on Terrence Shannon. Those are all American players.
That's the difference between being 7 and whatever, 7 wins, 8 wins, and maybe being in the tournament. Mm-hmm. That's different because now Illinois and Arizona are benefiting from those, right? It's crazy how 2 moves like that. Obviously, you probably get one of those 2, but one of those that's the difference between having a job and not having a job, and 2 other teams benefiting are in the Sweet 16. We'll talk about it a little bit.
Exactly. So it's sad to see one of their own go out like that. Juwan will figure it out, though. He'll get back in the NBA, whatever the case may be. But for Dusty, again, he just knows how to lay that foundation. I think his coaching staff is going to be pivotal. Like, he has to bring in the right coaching staff. Dudes that know the Midwest.
Important. That's very important.
Yeah, dudes that, run X's and O's, things like that. Juwan had a good staff, too. He had a couple of dogs. Obviously, Phil Martelli is a legend out there in Philly. But I honestly like it, though. Even though they're my rival and things like that, I truly believe Dusty May can get them going. Now, I'll be honest. I think the hype is a little bit too overboard in a sense. But, again, give Dusty May some time. I firmly believe he'll make it work at Michigan and get them going back in the right direction. They kind of needed to, right? Because, again, ever since Beilein's gone, Juwan had a couple good years. He had Franz Wagner. They got to the Elite Eight. They were shot away from potentially getting to a Final Four before the UCLA game. But things just went downhill from there. There was too much going on off the court that kind of prevented Juwan from having that success on the court. And with Dusty, I already seen, sadly, I guess he's going to have more NIL resources. I do know what it's about, but I don't know what it's about because, again, Juwan's one of their own, but that's an entirely different conversation for another day.
I feel like there's always more to that, man, that we don't know. It felt like it was like, yo, this is like a home run. Like, makes too much sense. Like, this is going to work. And it worked. Yeah. And then it just like you said, maybe the off the court stuff, health, maybe that was, I don't know. It just felt like I thought that was going to work and all that. And maybe they're, I don't know, but it felt like that was going to be a home run. But, how you start is how you finish. So, but it's crazy how it all just crumbled for them.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how it all plays out, right? I'm interested to see if, Dusty can get John L. Davis, Vlad Golden, and Elijah Martin to Ann Arbor, right? That's going to be key, too, for year one. I don't even think, to me, as I always say, it takes 3 years, in my opinion, to build, exactly, Lee. It takes 3 years, in my opinion, to build a program. Year one, again, you're just trying to lay the foundation. Year two, you start to get your players in. And then year three, you should have some type of success. That's how I see it. I think if you're an athletic director, that's how it should be, in my
Except
opinion.
If you're Louisville.
Yeah, we'll talk about. I guess we'll talk about that. I'm so tired of Louisville, but I think for Dusty May, that's how it should go. And again, I think this is a good hire. Like it really is. Again, because he's low key, he don't really care about the spotlight, and I just think, he's a guy that can get the job done out there in Ann Arbor. So I'm looking forward to matching up against them for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, he should. He's going to get the time to do it, to build a program. Like I said, we've seen how Louisville worked, and I think he just saw that was like, there's too much there, and how they treated Kenny Payne, and maybe he's like, that's how. I mean, Kenny Payne did a lot. He did a lot to self-inflicted wounds, but maybe he was looking at it as like, man, they're not as patient. Michigan will be more patient, so he'll get to do his thing. I think they'll definitely improve on that 8-26 record they had, whatever it is. They'll definitely be better next year. Dusty will allow to build the foundation. He could build a foundation and be able to do it with not as much pressure if he had went to Ville. So Dusty may do Michigan coach. Other news: Stanford hires Kyle Smith.
Mm-hmm.
He's the new coach. Makes sense because I don't even know where is Washington State playing basketball next year.
I want to say the Mountain West.
They're going to the Mountain West.
Excuse me, the WCC.
WCC. Because Stanford's going to the ACC, right?
Yep.
Which is going to be a hella weird.
Yeah.
That's going to be weird when they got to go to Syracuse.
Good luck.
That's going to be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You see in the NFL when teams got to go west to east, and that difficult now college kid. Oh man, that's going to take time to get adjusted to see that. That's going to look weird seeing Stanford, at Cameron and all that. So, but what's your thoughts on Kyle Smith taking the job?
I like this. He's built up multiple programs, right? He got Washington State to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2008. I believe that's back.
Replay?
That was back when Tony Bennett was there. So, I mean, the fact that he did that, and that team was really good. Like, they had players. Jalen Wells, to me, is a pro, right? You got a couple other guys. Miles Rice had a phenomenal freshman year. So, to me, he's put out pros there, too. Muhammad Gay was one of my favorite prospects last year. I think he's bounced around the league a little bit now. He was with the Hawks. I think he's somewhere else now, but he's still a player to me. So, I think, again, a place like Stanford, they have resources. Haas not being able to work out there was shocking to me because he got players in there, right? He had Harrison Ingram. He had Cormac Ryan. He had Stojakovic. He had Kanan Carlisle, who's going to be a star
in the portal.
Exactly, yeah. Both of them, Carlisle and Stojakovic, right? So he got players there, but Zaire Williams, but he could just never capitalize on it. And so to me, I think Kyle Smith can, because Kyle Smith, to me, is kind of like Dusty Man, the fact that wherever they go, they just make it work regardless. And again, him leaving Pullman, let's be honest, Washington State does not have near the resources that Stanford does. Stanford got way more. Yeah, their academic standards might be higher too, but Kyle Smith can make it work, bro. And again, they played Iowa State in the tournament. It was a tough game. That round of 32 game was tough. They played them down to the wire, and they were leading for a good portion of that game too. So I like this hire a lot. He definitely has earned this. He's definitely put in all the work to get this opportunity. And I truly think he'll capitalize on it and actually put Stanford basketball back on the map for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see what happens there. Good hire for Stanford and all that. Washington, they hired Danny Sprinkle from Utah State. We talked about him a little bit on the last show and all that, how he could be a name to possibly get a big job. He gets the job at Washington, did a great job at Utah State, got him to the tournament and all that. They got thumped. They got thumped over Purdue, right? But hey, Purdue's on a mission and all that, so you understand that. But Danny Sprinkle to Washington, how we feel about Danny Sprinkle and how the fit at Washington?
Another guy that just moved up the coaching ranks fast. Last year, he was at Montana State. He had to replenish an entire roster in Utah State this year. They finished first in the Mountain West this year in the regular season and get to the tournament, and he wins a game. Like, that's tough. Right, that's super tough. You lost every single point that Utah State scored a season ago. They lost, and Danny Sprinkle just completely revamped that roster and got them right back into the tournament a year later. You're seeing Stephen Ashworth at Creighton, right? And they lost a few other guys at that too. So I gotta salute it. I think it's another good one too because, again, Washington has the resources, right? Mike Hopkins, to me, the biggest issue with him was that I don't think he was really plugged in well in Seattle, right? He did get Jaden McDaniels, of course, who was a Seattle kid through and through from Federal Way High School. He got Isaiah Stewart out there. He got a few players out there. I just don't think he really knew the Seattle area hoop scene, if I'm being honest, because we all know Seattle has hoopers.
They got hoopers, man.
They got plenty of them. And so I think for Danny Sprinkle, especially going into the Big Ten, you're going to a better conference, a bigger conference, more revenue, things like that. Dudes are gonna want to play at UW, and I think it's a match made. I don't want to say a match made in heaven, but I do think Danny Sprinkle can honestly take this opportunity and just run with it and not look back at all, right? Because again, Washington's a hell of a job. If you can get Washington rolling, the fans are gonna they're gonna spoil you. The fans are gonna show up and they're gonna show out, right? So to me, I think this was a really good hire. Again, the Mike Hopkins tenure was just not it at all. They tried to hire a dude from the Bayheim tree, and he was running 2-3 zone all game. It's just it's not how you're gonna win games. But I like Danny Sprinkle to Washington. I think it's a great addition to the Big Ten, and another dude I'm looking forward to play for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think it's a good hire. Danny Sprinkle is a coach that you heard a lot of rumblings with a lot of big time jobs and all that, and I think he, with Washington, man, recruited. Seattle's a hotbed. They got hoopers, man. That's like everybody always talks about. They got some elite hoopers out there. You just got to find them. And you got to build the program. And I think Danny, he's young. He's only like in his 40s and all that. So young, up and coming coach and all that. You saw what he did at Montana State, and then the 1 year Utah State, like you just said, a whole new roster, be able to get them to the tournament, win a game too. Like that's impressive to do all in 1 year and all that. So, he moves on. He's going to Washington as they move to the Big Ten. It could be weird to see that too, but I think that's a solid hire though. Vanderbilt, they hired
Mark Byington.
And all that, and it's just crazy. Like the minute they lost, it was like gone and all that. But Byington, JMU, he was there for 4 or 5 years, did a nice job, very nice job. Underestimating it. He did a really good job at JMU and all that. They beat Sparty first game, and it was like, okay, all right, maybe we got something in. They were a team that people were talking about. Then they beat you guys, the first game of the season. It was like, okay. And then they had a tremendous season, went over 30 games, won a tournament game and all that. The Blue Devils had to, calm them down and humble them in Brooklyn and all that. But great season overall. But he takes over for Vanderbilt. Stackhouse is there. We know how tough Vandy can be. It is a tough job. So Mark, he's got his work cut out, but how do you like the hire and all that?
I actually love this one too. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I thought he was gonna get the West Virginia job, and they went in a different direction. And I thought he was a lock to there. But to me, again, at James Madison, they went and beat us at the Breslin Center this year, which is not an easy task, no matter how good or bad we are. Right? We barely lose at home in our worst years, and what they did this year, you look at Terrence Edwards, all the dudes on that team, they just got dogs, right? And Terrence Edwards might follow him too, Vandy. And again, going back to the Juwan and Michigan thing, somehow, some way, Vandy just all of a sudden got all these resources. I know they do.
Right. Suddenly you hear, oh yeah, we're going to relax on transfers. It's like, yo.
I mean, let's call it spade a spade. Vandy is in Nashville, Tennessee. I've never stepped foot in Tennessee, but I know.
Okay, I went to Tennessee in September. First time I've ever been there. Hey, man.
That country music.
You tell them, hey, kids would take a visit there. I know if I was a college kid and you sent me 10, 15 years earlier, you sent me in Tennessee, because where Vandy is where I was at. Was probably a couple miles. Vandy's right a couple miles. So, and that all the kids from Vanderbilt were in that area where I was at. And I'm like, oh, okay, I know why. Yep. Oh, okay. You can't tell me you relax on the recruiting and all that. Like you get kids, it could be something. The talent is popping. It's low-key popping, You start line dancing and all that. You start getting into the workout, you start you feeling yourself. It's a low. People were saying that, yo, you're gonna get it. I'm like, oh, it's popping, And then all the Vandy kids were talking about, yeah, man, we're gonna be lit soon. We just got to get the right coach.
Yeah, and like I just said, they got that country music money. I know Nashville got bread, so
they got
to me,
money. Yeah.
I'm not surprised at all. I think again, Mark Byington should do a good job. Now we can still be honest. Vandy is a bottom tier SEC job, but again. I mean, you can argue that, but at the same time, you can have some success there. If Bryce Drew if he didn't lose Darius Garland to that ACL injury when he was there, I think it might have been MCL. He would probably still be there. He wouldn't be at Grand Canyon right now. He'd still be at Vandy. So I look at it, Mark Byington, a really good hire. He's up and coming. Yeah, we'll talk about them heels, sadly, but Mark Byington's on his way, and Vandy should be looked at as a formidable threat. And I mean, you're in the SEC. You're gonna be going up against Sharks every night, and I think Mark Byington is more than ready. When you look at the defense that James Madison played this year, like in that first round matchup, they punked Wisconsin. And I know Wisconsin was having some internal locker room issues, but they just punked Wisconsin. They punched them in the mouth, and Wisconsin had no response at all. They were stunned the entire game, and that's just how it played out. And obviously, they didn't have that same luck against your Blue Devils, but for them to even do that, what they did all season, I think they only lost 3 games. I think they were like 30-3 all season. So, I mean, shout out to Mark Byington, man. And again, Vandy's a quality job, and we'll see what he does. Shout out to Stack too. Stackhouse will be fine. He'll find somewhere else. I thought he did for what they gave him. I feel like he did a solid job, honestly.
Tough ass job, man. That's a tough ass job, man. You know, we talked about Stack, like, hey man, what he did last year was low key impressive, but we knew, like, hey man, you anything worse than that, they're gonna try to get you out there, and you know, but Stack will be fine. I mean, and all that. He'll probably pick up in the NBA or something, you know, or you know, he'll be fine and all that. But that is a tough job. But we'll see how he does. You know, all right, Kev. I want to talk about before we get into. We're going to talk about 2 conferences that fooled us, both for different reasons. The SEC, maybe the best conference and all that. I mean, we got someone at the, you know, I won't say his name, but it starts with Maurice. At Auburn winning the whole damn thing. And Jeff, too. We were on OG3, which you can find on every Sunday on Off the Ball Network on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. They had Auburn win the whole thing. And there was some, you know, SEC disappointed, did not have a good weekend. And then we go to the ACC where, you know, we had one team that had a Cinderella run, and that was the only way they were getting in. Their coach was on the hot seat, maybe getting fired. You know, we had a team in Clemson that had up and down season. They were on the bubble. Duke was a team that toughness was a question, you know, and then Carolina was like, okay, are we going to get the national champion runner-up team, or are we going to get the team that didn't make the tournament? We still got to figure out what team. We got all 4 of those teams that were in the ACC are in the 2016, and the SEC is represented by
Tennessee.
By Tennessee, and that's it. Rick Barnes,
their last hope.
We relying on Rick Barnes to get it done. So let's talk about it. The ACC, SEC, you know, the ACC, they fooled us. We it was down, you know, and all that. Did they, you know, talk to me? The ACC, like what? We got 4 teams in it, you know, in the final 16, you know. So what happened? What didn't we see in the regular season that we seen from these teams as overall?
This is my thing, right? This is how I feel about person. I tweeted this and I deleted, of course. I delete majority of my tweets. I don't know why. But to me, I don't like to base conference success based on the tournament because obviously matchups play into it.
Of course.
But also because the reason we love the tournament is because of the unpredictability, because anybody can lose to anybody. But I will say, unlike the Big Ten, the ACC play style, it translates very, very well to the tournament. It's mostly guard heavy. Obviously, Clemson and NC State, they run through their big, DJ Burns and PJ Hall, but they have quality guards. Even though I'm not a big Joe Girard fan, he made some big time plays in that game versus Baylor. They obviously they got New Mexico out the paint pretty easily, and NC State had they beat Texas Tech, then they beat Oakland in overtime. So they both have had pretty good runs, but the ACC play style translates well. If Wake Forest would have made the tournament, I know they were kind of like a long shot. Even Pitt, I think both of them would have had some type of success. They would have won a game, in my opinion.
Wake or Hunter Salas could have
for sure. And again, another thing too with the ACC that nobody really talks about, especially in the ACC, But let's be honest too. As it currently stands, before the Pac-12 officially died, it's still alive because of Arizona right now. But if we're just talking with recent memory, the ACC is the only conference with 2 blue bloods. So y'all should technically always be having success if we're just calling a spade, right? If we're just being honest, right? You have 2 blue bloods in Duke and Carolina. So that automatically is going to give you a boost, and it's automatically going to raise the standards for everybody else. You know why? Because if you're NC State, you're not looking at Carolina and Duke like they're big bro. No, you're trying to beat them up every year. If you're Wake Forest, same thing, right? And also too, I give you guys credit because how I look at it is the ACC isn't as bad as we make it out to be, but it's also not as great as it has been historically. That's my thing, right? Because I blame that on Virginia being inconsistent, Louisville being terrible in the dumpster fire right now, Florida State
We don't count Virginia. We're not gonna talk about. We don't
exactly
need that nastiness on our show.
abysmal. Florida State had their little run with Leonard Hamilton where they were putting out pros, Malik Beasley, Dwayne Bacon, Jonathan Isaac, Scotty Barnes. But Florida State's been down the past few years. Shout out to our guy Nick covering the Seminoles and everything, but they've been down, right? But outside of that, again, the top 4, I got to give them all the praise in the world. They did what they were supposed to do. And for the SEC, man, where do I begin? So we packed up Mississippi State. I wasn't really worried about them because Josh Hubbard was the only guy on their team that could really beat us. I thought we did a great job of guarding Tolu Smith, so we got them out of there, right? You look at Kentucky. Where do I start with that one, right?
And we'll talk about them a little bit. We'll talk about
Kentucky. That's the NCAA tournament. That's the nature of the beast, right?
We forgot Bama's in the Sweet 16. I forgot Bama.
Oh yeah, my bad, NATOs. My bad, NATOs. They are in the Sweet 16. So you got Tennessee and Bama. Obviously, A&M was in a dogfight versus Houston. A&M was down 13 with like a minute 30 left. They came back. Game goes to overtime with Anderson Garcia 3.
Wild.
That was a great game, right? South Carolina, I kind of knew they played too slow. Like, if we're being honest, they had a lot of success, and I credit Lamont Paris.
They overachieved big time.
For sure. And I credit Lamont Paris for what he did this year because that's a tough job too, right? But at the same time, I knew that style of play was going to get him. On top of Dana Altman just has much more NCAA tournament experience than Lamont Paris has, and that can be a major coaching advantage in these situations. And so for the rest of the conference, it's just like it is what it is, right? You have quality teams, but a lot of these play styles don't translate. Even Tennessee, in my opinion, they should have smacked Texas. To me,
really
Texas
should have. I thought they
should have smacked them. They were up big too for a little bit, but Texas came back. I give them credit for that. But that game was very contested towards the end. I know Volunteer fans out there were sweating the end of that game out. And Dalton Connect had a big-time dunk, and they had some other big-time plays too. But that game, in my opinion, should not have came down to the wire as close as it did. But I do give them credit because at the end of the day, they still won it. But to me, I mean, the SEC, it was good this year. I think you can make a case it was the second or third best conference. But again, it all goes back to matchups, bro. Matchups is the most important thing. You feel me? Because even NC State, they're riding a high of winning the ACC tournament 5 games in 5 days. They beat all the top 3 teams between y'all, Carolina, Virginia in that span, and they're still riding that wave. And they run into, in the first round, Texas Tech, which I thought the Red Raiders should have won that game, but they didn't. And then they run to Oakland, who was hot. And again, it went to overtime. It was a great game, and they won. And so sometimes it's just favorable matchups. Clemson, again, dominated New Mexico, got them out the paint fast, and then beat Baylor, and they made Baylor play uncharacteristic. Jacoby Walter was missing free throws. They were missing all their threes. Like, they did a good job of hunking down and playing defense, and that's just the nature of the beast sometimes. Carolina handled business. They got Wagner out of there, and then they turned up on us and got us out of there. And then y'all did what y'all was supposed to do, right? And just handle business. James Madison, Jared McCain was in fuego. He didn't look back. He had no hesitation whatsoever, and it was just what it was. So, I mean, the ACC, again, the quality of play is always going to be there because mostly you have 2 blue bloods. That's just how it is. When you have 2 blue bloods, it raises the bar and the standard for all the other programs going down to the worst program in the ACC, whoever that is. Boston College. Boston College is going to play better knowing that, hey, we have Duke and Carolina on our resume every year, and we're probably going to play them 4 times between the 2 of them. We have a shot to beat them. That's how teams are going to feel, and it's going to make you better as a result of that. So I will salute the ACC, though, because they did get a lot of smack talked about them all year, and now they got a quarter percentage of their schools in the Sweet 16, and that's not an easy thing to do.
I just think because also like we thought Miami would be,
Yeah.
we thought Miami was going to be a potential Final Four team, and
Mhm.
that didn't happen. They were right next to Louisville as far as the bottom of the standings and all that. And like you said, Florida State's and Virginia being down, so that kind of hurt stop. But like you said, as long as the two top teams are still there, that's all that really matters. They carry it because when you out of any conference, when the two best teams in any conference, as far as history and all that, it's the ACC with Duke and Carolina. If they're on top, I mean that's the best rivalry in college basketball and all that. When they're on top, they could carry it, and they're in the Sweet 16, right? And they're showing it, So and listen, both teams had flaws, especially my Blue Devils, but they go. I mean, and I said right, I told you it was like I could see them getting bounced early, but they caught. I was like, Kev, if they were any other region, they might lose early.
Mm-hmm.
And they just caught they were in the right region. They were in the right region. Now we got it. We got a tough one, and we'll talk about it as we talk about the Sweet 16, who thinks going to win and all that. But have those two top dogs, you can be able to carry it, and that's what the ACC's done. And they got 4 teams in the Sweet 16. And as we talk about the Sweet 16, let's get right into it, Kev. Sweet 16 starts Thursday, Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Friday my Blue Devils play. So let's talk about the Thursday games first. So we're talking about number 6 Clemson against number 2 Zone Arizona. What we got in this one?
I like Arizona, right? I do think Clemson's gonna have an advantage just because, in my opinion, I think Umar Ballo hasn't been as impressive as I think most people wanted him to be. So I do think PJ Hall and Ian Shefflin are going to have opportunities to dominate in the front court. But I just think that guard play is going to outweigh itself. And I think their defense is going to stifle Clemson's guards between Chase Hunter, between Joe Girard, between all those guys. And I just feel Arizona's on a mission. And honestly, we'll talk about it too, but I just think the Caleb Love revenge game is in full effect in this one. I think the Arizona-North Carolina matchup is inevitable. And so I don't think destiny is going to stop that from happening out here in the great city of Los Angeles.
I'm with you in there. I think we're destined to see that matchup. Clemson's had a great run, though. PJ Hall's shown that
For sure.
he's been one of the most consistent bigs we've seen all season and all that, and definitely popping on some NBA radars and all that. So that this should be a good one. But I think Arizona, they got some. They got to handle business. They've been a team that we've seen get bounced early and all that, but them along with a team we'll talk about later have they're on a mission, and they definitely shown us so far to beat some good teams so far. New Mexico, people thought that was an upset. If there was gonna be an upset, New Mexico was riding a hot streak. Baylor took down Baylor and all that. So I'm with you with that. I think Arizona pulls off the dub versus Clemson. All right, San Diego State, runner-ups for the national championship, versus UConn.
I'm going with the Huskies, man. A rematch, like you said, of the national championship game last year. To me, I love what Coach Dutch has done with his Aztec team because the main thing with them is they just lack an offensive scoring punch outside of Jaden Ledee, right? I want more from Lamont Butler. I want to see more from Reese Dixon Waters, but we just haven't really seen it. Their offense is live and die with Jaden Ledee. Jaden Ledee is going to get a post touch every single time, and if it doesn't touch his hands, then to Dutch it feels like it's a failed possession. So when you look at UConn right now, another team that's just on a mission. They got so many different guys that can beat you, whether it's Tristan Newton, Cam Spencer, Donovan Clingan, Alex Caravan, Stephon Castle, right? The list just goes on. It feels like they got an NBA roster damn near. So I look at them, and they've been rolling too, because you got to think last year, again, they won every game by double digits, right? Yeah. This year, that's what they've done so far too. they haven't stopped. The train keeps rolling.
They've embarrassed teams.
I got to give Danny Hurley credit. And shout out to Boo Booey, by the way, too. Northwestern legend. I know, that was a tough game for him in the Wildcats and Chris Collins and them. They've had a hell of a couple years with Boo Booey and Chase Aldige and all those guys. But when you run into a freight train like UConn, it's just nothing that you can do because they're a well-oiled machine. The thing about them that I love about them is it's not just the talent, it's the chemistry and it's the how they play on a string. The offense flows. Everybody
100%.
knows where everybody's gonna be at. You work the ball from side to side. You rarely see dudes over dribble. You rarely see dudes take bad shots. They play a great brand of basketball, and that all goes back to coaching and finding the right players for your system. And that goes the whole coaching staff from Danny Hurley to the last assistant coach. So I'm taking the Huskies to win this one.
And you know what's crazy? They shot three like 25 from three and still won by almost 20 points. It shows you, like I said, they're just a fundamentally good team. They're every position. They have an All-American at every position. Like essentially. Like they have All-American level players at their position. And then Danny Hurley. And it's crazy. We talked about Danny Hurley last year, like, yo, what if you don't figure it out? And he went through that stretch like January-ish where they lost like 6 or 7, and it was like, oh man, this is where it seems like every time Danny Hurley always has that weird stretch and then they just don't figure it out. And it's like, maybe something.
Yeah.
And then ever since that stretch happened, they have just went on and whooped everybody's ass.
And I want to say too, real quick, this is a testament to patience too, right? Because UConn could have easily gave up on him. I think he's in year 6 or 7 right now. They could have easily gave up on him because before they won it all last year, the year before that, I want to say they lost in either the first or second round to New Mexico State. I think it might have been the first round. I think it was a
first round, I believe. I think it was 5.
And so for them to stay the course is important, bro, because Villanova did it with Jay Wright. We seen how that played out, right? So you have to sometimes just be patient. And Danny Hurley, we know it's in his genes, we know it's in his bloodline, but now he's finally found his niche. And UConn to me is the best program in the country right now.
They're on a mission, man. They could have one of the more impressive runs we've seen in this century, like, or even since I haven't seen something like this. Like, it's just really to have a 2-year run of dominance, and they lost a lot of good players, bro. They lost a lot of good players, and just to revamp and it's not like it's like 5-star freshmen they're getting to develop. And every coach, this is what they want, what Danny Hurley doing. And it's hard to do in this era. So you got to give him credit for that. But I think UConn wins this
handily.
Because I think they take care of business and all that. I think this won't be a game, in my opinion. They just don't they don't have enough firepower offensively. They get down, but the minute they get down by 6-8 points, it's UConn they're gonna continue to destroy. So Alabama versus the number 1 seeded Carolina Tar Heels. A battle of Bama. I mean, all offense, no defense. So who we got in this matchup?
These two teams actually played last year. Obviously, the teams were completely different. And at the PK 85, where it went to 4 overtimes, I don't even remember who won that game. But
right. Yeah.
But
I remember. Yeah.
It's two different teams though, at the same time. I'm gonna go with the Heels just because Nate Oates' play style, man, is just so concerning to me, right? Because it's literally take threes or get layups. And against a team like Carolina, you have, as my Spartans just seen this past weekend, you have to value every single possession. You have to get the best possible shot that you can get every time you get down the floor on the offensive side of the ball, right? And so to me, Mark Sears himself, I got to give a lot of credit to Mark Sears. I don't think the nation has given enough credit to him. He's played amazing. He's been an All-American all year long. But Mark Sears by himself cannot beat this North Carolina team. You know why? Because as we've seen, Carolina has not just RJ Davis, they got Harrison Ingram. Not just those two, they got Cormac Ryan. Not just those 3, they got Armando Bacot, right? You got Seth Trimble coming off the bench.
Elliot Cadeau, yeah, man.
You got dudes, right? So to me, I just think the style of play benefits North Carolina because North Carolina wants to run too. They don't run necessarily as fast as Bama because nobody really plays as fast as Bama, but they play really fast too. And if you get into a pace like that, Carolina knows how to slow down the game too, and that benefits them because I think they're going to win the rebounding battle too, right? Because of Armando, because of Jalen Washington, because of Harrison Ingram. So to me, give me the Heels to win this one by a few.
Yeah, I just think Alabama's they just don't have enough defense, and then Baycott's is gonna pound them inside. I think UNC take care of the business. I think this might be could potentially be the game of the Sweet 16, and that's the Fighting Illini
Whew.
down against Iowa State.
I can't wait for this one.
Great offense versus great
Mhm.
defense. Terrence Shannon has been on a tear. You
Mhm.
know, he has been the player we thought. I mean, that we thought he would. He's always could should have been.
Yep.
He's fine. It felt maybe he just needed to mature and all that. And he finally put it all together and all that. So the number 3 Fighting Illini, number 2 Iowa State. Who we got in this one?
Like you said, bro, the contrast in styles
It's
is
crazy, right?
insane in this matchup. And I'm gonna lean Iowa State. And this is really 50-50 to me, but just speaking from the heart right now, I'm gonna go with the Cyclones just because Illinois' defense has been very up and down this year, right? And Iowa State, as good as they've been all year long in the Big 12 and now in the tournament, they don't really have a number one go-to scoring option. They got a whole
That's
bunch of guys that could be a number two, right? Milan, Keyshawn Gilbert, Taman Lipsey, but they don't have like a go-to guy. And Illinois does between Terrence Shannon and Marcus Damask. But I think the biggest thing too is that going into the season, everybody was concerned about Illinois not having a point guard, which is obviously true because you need to have a point guard. I think having a point guard in
yeah.
this game in particular, would have benefited them a lot. But I think the bigger thing is, even though Dane Danger has been playing amazing in these two tournament games between Morehead State and Duquesne, they don't have a real rim protector. They just don't. And Iowa State has that. They have Hassan Ward. They have Rob Jones. Iowa State has a big body. So even if, say, Iowa State goes cold from the three-point line, they got guys that can give them second chance opportunities. And Illinois, to me, doesn't really have that. So that's why I'm going to lean the Cyclones. And I think in this contrast of styles, I think TJ Otzelberger's defense is going to outweigh Brad Underwood's offense. And I think they're going to be able to slow down. This is going to be the main thing. You just got to slow down Terrence Shannon in transition. If you could slow down Terrence Shannon in transition, Purdue, we've seen it in the Purdue games twice this year. If you could slow him down, which is obviously much, much easier said than done, you're going to give yourself a great chance to knock off the Illini. And that's why I have the Cyclones advancing in this game and going to the Elite Eight.
That's going to be the thing. Can they slow down Terrence Shannon? That's going to be the thing because he's being able to get to the basket at will, and he's a great free throw shooter too. So he's knocking down his free throws and all that. Shooting, I mean, he's been on an absolute clip for like it feels like for the last like month and change. He's been on a tear and all that. So like I said, the point guard thing was an issue, but since Terrence Shannon's just been able to do his thing, it's kind of just been an afterthought right now. But this could be a game. This is the game where you kind of want that guy who could settle down and all that, especially when you're playing against a defense like Iowa State. But if you're Illinois, you got to be able to jump on them quick and jump because it's gonna be tough for them to come back. So this game is very eerily similar to a game we're going to talk about next, as far as matchup wise, because it's very very similar. Maybe Duke doesn't have like the Terrence Shannon, but they have a guy who could have moments and all that. So I'm with you. This is gonna be a good one. This is a toss up. This is definitely a toss up. I think I'm gonna go with Illinois. I think to figure it out. All right, so let's go to the Friday slate of games. Number 4 Duke versus the Houston Cougars. I'm gonna be. I don't have work Friday. I'm chilling. I don't really trip over games anymore. The older I get, I've become more. I don't trip over games. I don't get mad. I don't overreact. But this is March. I can't wait. I cannot wait for Friday. I know there's a part of the week that's like, man, it could be disappointed and all that, and it could end here. And I had them losing here, but Duke versus Houston, like we said, like kind of similar to what we just talked about with Illinois, and obviously you got offense versus defense. Duke is listen. People like we talked about this for the show. People like, oh well, Duke did they only played Vermont and they only played JMU and all. But a lot of people had them either if they did beat Vermont, losing to JMU, or losing to Vermont in the first round. And I've said, and I'll be the first one to say, there was a possibility that I feel like, hey, they could lose depending on the. I was like, they could lose. I think they fell in the perfect region, and I'm like, when I saw them going, I'm like, oh wow, yeah, we're going to 316 at least. And I was like, I was hoping it would be Texas A&M. They almost, they almost pulled it off, but we got Houston. But before the tournament, when I did we did our bracket preview, and I was like, man, Houston might wash us. I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't feel like Houston can definitely take care of us, because the toughness that people question would do. Hey man, Shire got them boys like, hey, put it on Vermont, take them out. JMU, oh, everyone thinks the 30 wins, all that. Punch him in the mouth. Now, Anita McCain, the guard, and we talked about guard play, right? We know Roach has been good all year. McCain, for the last 2 months, has been really good. Proctor is the one where we were like, the guy that, we saw versus Tennessee, even though they lost Tennessee last year, it was like, oh, he put him on the, okay, this is why people like him in the NBA space, draft space, and all that. Had dealt with some injuries, didn't have the season well, but he's been crucial and all that. Had a good game. So, and I saw that toughness and all that. Mark Mitchell was on his thing, doing his thing, and he's going to be crucial in this game, because we need a wing to be able to do something. So, before we did our brackets, I would have said, man, I think Houston wash us. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think we have a shot. Well, what do you feel about this matchup? And then tell me who you think who wins this game.
It comes down to two things, right? As you mentioned, Tyrese Proctor, I think it's also going to be on Jeremy Roach too, because one of the staples of Kelvin Sampson's program that I personally love, and I think it's a genius thing to do, is how they trap the post, right? Because most post players, they don't know how to pass out of the post. They know how to receive catches in the post, but they don't know how to make plays outside of it, right? They know how to score, but when they get a double team, they don't know how to facilitate out of it. And so I think that's going to nullify Kyle Filipowski. And the only way to get Flip back in the game is by Jeremy Roach and Tyrese Proctor hitting shots. You're never worried about Jared McCain hitting shots, because that's what he does. He's going to get paid millions of dollars to do exactly that. But it's going to be between Proctor and Roach to knock down timely shots. And I worry about Mark Mitchell, because Mark Mitchell, he started to slowly but surely hit shots. But he's kind of got it. If you're on the scouting report for Houston, you're not worried about Mark Mitchell killing you like that, right? But
you want him to slash. That's his job, is to be able to slash and all that, which he's been doing very good, and that's he's going to have to do against Houston.
Exactly. And then on the other side, Duke, y'all defense, obviously the main thing is Jamal Shead, right? We all know Jamal Shead. To me, Jamal Shead is the best point guard in the country for everything that he does, right? And rest in peace, Reggie Cheney too, by the way. I love that tribute that they got the patch with him on there. But with that, you have to slow him down. But to be honest, I think the key is not necessarily saying, I hate when people say, oh, let him have his. Like that, no coach is saying that, if we're just being honest. You have to slow down Jamal Shead, but the dude that they really need to get in on and cancel out is LJ Cryer. Because to me, when LJ Cryer is hooping, I don't think a team in the country can beat Houston. That's why I have them winning the national championship, in my opinion, because LJ Cryer, when his shots are falling, and I can say about a lot of dudes, but he is a marksman. Kelvin Sampson loves to recruit dudes that can knock down shots and make plays for themselves. LJ Cryer does that to a T. And Emmanuel Sharp's been playing better too. And Juwan Roberts, I think slowly but surely getting a week's worth of rest is only going to get more and more healthy too. So that front court, they match up really well with Flip, if I'm being honest. They got between Javier Francis and Juwan Roberts, they got bodies to throw at Flip, on top of the fact that, again, they're going to trap Flip. They're going to make Flip
him a passer.
Yeah, they're going to make Flip have to operate off the wing. He's not going to get no clean post touches. So to me, it comes down to, again, can Tyrese Proctor and Jeremy Roach knock down shots? And can Duke slow down LJ Cryer? That's what it is to me. So to me, I'm going to lean with the Cougs. I'm going to go with Houston because I've had them winning it all year. But I wouldn't be surprised if Duke wins this game either. But I'm going Houston, personally.
What did you see from the Houston Texas A&M game that kind of got Houston off their game? Because Texas A&M had him. They had him. So was there anything there that concerned you that, or what should Duke take away from that game that they could use to their advantage to try to take down Houston?
You have to match their intensity and physicality with the same exact intensity and physicality. That's the way to beat them. When you look at the way the teams that Houston has lost to the past few years in the tournament, last year they lost to Texas. Texas, they matched up really well with them in the physicality standpoint, right? They had a whole bunch of elder statesmen that have been playing college basketball games and they weren't trying to go home. A few years ago, they lost to Jay Wright's Villanova team. That was the game that Justin Moore tore his Achilles, right? And Villanova, that's what they're known for, having that toughness and physicality. So Duke, that's why my concern is with Flip is because it's not just on Flip, but it feels like Flip don't really have help in the front court, right? He has Mark Mitchell, but like we all know Ryan Young. Ryan Young
Hey
is like,
man,
come on now. We don't even talk about him like that. But to me, again, that's the main thing. And the thing with A&M was too, A&M and Houston actually matched up early in the year. They played each other in the non-conference schedule, and Wade Taylor had 30 back then, and Texas A&M only lost by like 4. So A&M really had that vantage point too of, hey, this is our second time playing them. We know what they do, even though it was a major stretch in between the season that took place. We've seen this team already, right? So for you guys, again, it's all going to be about matching the physicality and really too, just the talent being the talent. Jared McCain got to be Jared McCain. He don't got to be as crazy as he was versus JMU. Obviously, that would be unfair to ask of him, but he has to show up. Jeremy Roach, same thing. You're a senior, right? This is your last hoorah. Tyrese Proctor, as you mentioned, he got all the hype based off last season in that Tennessee game. It's time to show up and finally put it on full display for Duke Nation, Blue Devil Nation, whatever y'all call it, the brotherhood, right? So that's going to be a main thing too. But to me, I'm going to just slightly lean with Houston in this game, but I do expect this to be a dogfight, and I expect this to go all the way down to the wire.
yeah, it's. I wonder how Houston are they going to allow Flip to be able to even just get post entries, because like you said, they're going to have to get physical with Flip, but he can't pass a little bit, and as they see with James Madison, now that's James Madison is Houston, but guards are hitting their shots. So do you want to, or do you want him to even get post? Do you want to just get him, like, make him, try to make plays from the perimeter and all that, which teams have done against Duke and all that. So it's going to be interesting to see how Houston attacks him defensively and all that, because he hasn't been great so far, but we're going to need him to be the Flip, because I mean, he didn't do anything against Vermont, and he only had 12 points against JMU. That's not going to help. That's not going to. McCain has been great, but we can't expect him to have 11 threes or whatever he had, 10 threes again. It's just not going to happen and all that. So we're going to need Flip to. He's going to need a Flip game. He's going to have a 20 and 10 game, and you need the guards to combine the three of them to at least get you around 40 to 45 points to feel comfortable that you have a shot. And Mark Mitchell just be able to do the little things, do the dirty stuff and all that to have a chance and all that, and on a defensive side, you got to be able to try to make them make shots from the perimeter. That's their weakness. If there's a weakness with this team, is their perimeter shooting. So if you could force them to be a three-point shooting team and you hit shots on their side, and if you front run, then now you force Houston to make shots, and that's not where they're best at. So if that's what happens, then we could see an upset. But I'm going with my boys. And we're going to ride it down, baby. We ride it down with the brotherhood, baby. Let's go. Let's get this. All right. NC State taking on Marquette.
Give me the Golden Eagles.
Does it end? It ends?
Yeah. And shout out to Keys, by the way. I meant to say that earlier. Shout out to Coach Keys, man. He got extended multiple times throughout this run, right? He got whole bunch of percentages up, shall I say, a pay raise, all them things. He's keeping his job. He's going to be in Raleigh for much, much longer. And to me, I got to go with Marquette, though, just because Tyler Kolek is back, obviously, right? And to be fair, NC State does have the guards to match up with them defensively, right? Casey Morcell, DJ Horn, they got Jaden Taylor. They got dudes to guard them. And, DJ Burns is more than likely, I'm going to be honest, Also, Iguodala has not played that well recently, bro.
As
I
a
don't
man,
know.
he's been disappointing. Yeah,
I don't know what it is, but DJ Burns is probably going to win that matchup. He might not just win it; he might dominate that. So that's going to make the game interesting just off the fact of that. But I do think that Marquette is going to be again on a mission, right? Tyler Cole is playing better. I think you're seeing other guys step up, right? You're seeing Chase Ross step up. You're seeing David Joplin step up. You're seeing Stevie Mitchell make plays. And I think this game, to me, we haven't seen it yet so far, but I think this is the game that it will happen. I think Cam Jones is going to go nuclear. I think he's going to have like 5, 6, 7 threes. I think he's destined to just go scorching earth in one of these games. And I feel like this is the perfect game too because DJ Burns is a better defender than most people would probably think. But I just think Cam Jones is going to just make him pay. Like just coming off pick and rolls, he's just going to light him up. So give me Shaka Smart and the Big East boys in this one from Marquette to hold it down and get
I'm
out
with
NC State
you.
out of here.
I'm with you on that. I think the run ends for NC State. It's been a hell of a run. It's been
Hell
a
of a
hell of a
run.
run. Hell of a run, but I think Marquette gets the job done. All right. The underrated Gonzaga Bulldogs, which is crazy to think that Gonzaga has a team that is flying under the radar. Crazy to think that. And they take on Purdue, who's been on a absolute mission. They were not playing around, and they have been dominant. So Gonzaga, Purdue.
Give me the Bulldogs, man. I ain't gonna lie. Just because,
Gonzaga Bulldogs with the upset. So how does this happen?
look, they played each other again earlier this year at the Maui Invitational. And obviously Purdue ran through that tournament, right? They had much success and they dominated pretty much everybody in that tournament. The reason I'm gonna take the Zags though is because, in my opinion, they have the front court to match up with Edie. And it's not so much about having the front court to match up with Edie. It's about having the bodies to throw at Edie because they're going to get in foul trouble. That's the nature of the beast. In that Utah State game, Utah State got so mentally fried by the refs that they just lost all composure. They were out of it. And that's why they got 40 balled, right? But to me, between Ben Gregg, Graham Ike, amongst
And
others,
EK's gonna be important.
you
in
can
this game.
throw bodies at Edie. And in my opinion, as good as Braden Smith is, I really trust in Ryan Nembhard. I think Ryan Nembhard has slowly but surely turned a major curve in the last month and a half for Gonzaga,
Play
where he
good
looks
ball.
very
He's playing good
comfortable.
ball.
And I'll give this other guy this credit because I haven't been a big fan of his, but he's been playing really well too. Nolan Hickman. Nolan Hickman is playing better basketball. This whole team is, honestly. Like they went to Rupp, they got Kentucky out of here. And it feels like ever since that moment, I think their confidence just went sky high. And so I think this is the game that ends Purdue's season. I truly believe that again, just because again they already matched up, so they know what it's gonna be. They know how to play them, and again they have the front court to match up with them, and they're gonna put Edie in the same situation that they put Hunter Dickinson in with that roll and replace, and they're gonna try and pick him apart because that's what they did against Kansas. They exposed Hunter Dickinson's
Oh,
lack
Hunter
of
Dickinson
mobility.
was just he was
He
in a
couldn't do anything. He couldn't do anything. So to me, give me the Zags, man. Give me the Zags.
I mean, and McNick State, that was probably everybody picked McNick State. Everybody picked McNick State. And they said, get up out of here. 20-piece them. Kansas, it's Kansas. Regardless of McCullough was out. I think at one point they went by 30. They handed to them, I'm with you, but I think Purdue gets the job done. I think they get it done. I think Braden Smith. I think they got enough. I think Zagat does it but I think it's gonna be close. This is gonna be a good one. This is definitely gonna go one.
The
But
key
I'm
is
gonna go.
my bad. I just had to say real quick. The key is Zach Edey's gonna get his, right? You can't lose your composure because of that. Braden Smith is more than likely gonna have a good game. The key is you have to slow down Fletcher Lawyer. If you can slow down Fletcher Lawyer, you are going to give yourself a great chance at beating Purdue. And Fletcher Lawyer has had up and down moments all year.
All
right?
season,
You never really know what you're going to get from Fletcher Lawyer. Some games he's non-existent. Other games he's killing us. He's killing Arizona. He'll put up 25 like it's nothing. if you can slow down Fletcher Lawyer though and make his life tough, you're gonna give yourself a chance to win. I think Gonzaga can do that, and I think they can make Edey work a lot for his opportunities too as well.
I'm with you. I'm with you. That's gonna be a good one. I'm looking forward to that one. And then to cap it off, team I have winning the national championship, Creighton versus Tennessee. This one, man, that's gonna
Battle.
be a good one. That's gonna be a battle and all that.
Mhm.
Who we got in this one? This was Dalton Connect, All American and all that.
Mhm.
Kalkbrenner, all them boys. Who gets this one? This is if besides Duke and Houston, that's personal. This
Mhm.
might be the next game up that I'm most looking forward to.
This one is so tough. I'm very much so looking forward to this more than probably any game. I think this is a great matchup, great contrast of styles. You got Creighton getting up and down, running a whole bunch of sets to free open shooters. You got Tennessee, of course. Rick Barnes is known for his tough, physical, hard-nosed defense. To me, honestly, before we even got to it, I was thinking about it, I was like, Tennessee's gonna win, but now I'm kind of leaning Creighton because in the game versus Texas, Tennessee did not shoot the three ball well at all. And versus Creighton, you're gonna have to do that because Ryan Kalkbrenner, as we know, is not giving up anything in the paint, right? He plays amazing defense. Up and coming big men across the country should watch and learn and study how Ryan Kalkbrenner plays defense. And I do think Tennessee can wear them down because if we're being honest, Creighton is a top heavy team. So you're going to need somebody else to step up. But when I look at Stephen Ashworth, Trey Alexander, Baylor Shireman, obviously they were in overtime.
Ashworth has come on lately too. He was kind of up and down again to see, trying to figure out obviously step up in competition and all that. Going from Utah State and playing in the Big East and all that, but he's definitely come on of late.
Yeah, and that matchup between him and Zakai Ziegler might end up proving who wins this game, right?
I think so. Defense versus offense, yeah.
They're two key components of the team. Obviously, their point guards are going to have an impact on the game regardless. But whoever wins that matchup is going to give their team a great shot at winning. So I'm going to go Creighton, though. I was about to go Tennessee, but I just think Creighton is going to hit the timely shots, whether it be from Trey Alexander, Baylor Shireman, whoever it may be. And I think also, too, they're going to get the timely stops on the defensive end. I think Tennessee can, too, because if you're Tennessee, you already know you got to worry about that big three first and foremost, right? But to me, again, Creighton was here at this exact same spot last year, and they're trying to get even further, right? Obviously, they ended up losing in the Elite Eight to San Diego State, so they were right there getting to the Final Four. I think that hunger has been driving them. Of course, it's not the same team. You don't have Nemhard anymore. You don't have Arthur Kaluma, amongst other guys. But to me, Trey Alexander is just a dude where late game situations, you can put the rock in his hand and you can expect him to make plays regardless of who's defending him. And he's going to have tough matchups. Josiah Jordan-James can guard his ass off. Jemai Meshack, same thing. Those are big bodies. But, I mean, Dalton Connect got to guard somebody too, right? And we already know that's not his strong suit. So I assume Craig's going to try and pick on him too because you gotta tire his legs out on the other end of the floor. So, and that's the thing too. Creighton doesn't really have that matchup for Dalton Connect like that, right? Trey Alexander can guard him, but
I had to put Baylor on him. I know Baylor's not a defensive guy, but just this, he's still 6'8". So just to get his length, that's gonna have to be the move. But they're gonna have to figure it out because they don't have anyone that could really guard him 1-on-1.
And to be fair, nobody does, right? We've seen
nobody does. Nobody. He's a bucket.
He's been frying everybody, but I'm gonna go Creighton in this one, man. I think Creighton just squeaks out the W just like they did this past game versus Oregon.
Tennessee needs Vescovi to have the games he was having. I feel like he's been non-existent this year. This feels like a game where you need Vescovi to have 5 threes and all that. This is the type of game he needs to step up and all that. So they're gonna need that because Dalton. The focus is gonna be on Dalton. Who's the next guy up that's gonna help him out? Because we know Creighton got a bunch of dudes that could score and all that. Who has that potential? Yeah, but defensively, Tennessee can match up with them perfectly, but it's offensively. What if you get down 7 and they got 2? They're locking up Dalton. Who's gonna step up? Is the Kai gonna do it? He's had moments, but That's what I'm wondering. That's what concerns me about Tennessee. Yeah, they could defensively, but I think Creighton just has too many matches, and I want to see them versus Purdue. I want to see that, so I'm going with Creighton. I have Creighton win the national championship. You know, got them win the national championship. That's my pick, so I'm going to stick with my pick. So I'm going with Creighton to win it and all that. But we got some good games though, Kev.
Great game.
Games, Sweet 16. I mean, it means we're a step closer to college basketball being over and all that. But one thing I want to mention, I know there's a lot of negativity, the transfer portal opening, blah, 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 coaches leaving, this and that. And can we just enjoy ball?
Man.
Who cares about all that? That's all, whatever, man. Hey, you gotta adapt. Hey, man, that's what it is, man. All right, we gotta recruit and all. Hey, man, I guarantee you wouldn't change this. Whatever coaches are in this aspect of, I know you may be behind the wheel a little bit, but guess what? I guarantee you would not change this for anything. Like, hey, all right, we gotta multitask. We gotta recruit and worry about. Hey, I guarantee you, because guess what? If you're not in the situation, that's a step closer to getting fired.
Facts.
So I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's not fair, man. Man, that's just a part of the game. But let's enjoy what these kids are doing. Let's enjoy college basketball. We're Sweet 16. We're getting that much closer, to get into the Final Four and all that. So let's just enjoy it. Negativity, all that. Who cares? Whatever, man. But let's enjoy this because this is, we got some great games, man. There's gonna be a buzzer beater. That's the bold prediction. We will get a true buzzer to end the game. Not to go to. I know we got Texas A&M. That was a buzzer beater to go. But I'm saying one of these games ends in a buzzer beater. That's my bold prediction. That one of these games ends in a buzzer beater. Give me an ups. If there was an upset, you had to pick one upset. Who's the upset?
One upset.
I know some of them. I know we got a lot of good close matchups. Yeah. But if you had to say, all right, one team that everybody's picking,
NC State versus Marquette. NC State Marquette. Nobody's had the solution to figuring out DJ Burns yet, and we already know.
And it's crazy to think that you would think a guy that's built like him, you're like, man, that's easy. Mm-hmm. It's easy to figure out, right? You just run, just keep running.
It's not.
No. It's not as easy as you think.
Going back to what we said earlier, the ACC battle tested him for this. You got Armando, you got Flip, you got PJ Hall, right, amongst others in that conference, right? So he's war ready. So I'm gonna go with that, man. And I'll say this too: a lot of people said they were kind of bored with last week's games, but I think it makes, like you just said, it makes these games better because we're seeing this a whole bunch of top dogs. It's no Cinderella like that. It's the cream of the crop, right? It's the top tier. So I think, like you said, these games this Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday are going to be bangers, honestly.
And that's what you really want. Like I know Cinderellas are cool, right? And we get the buzzer beaters, and that's probably what people are saying. Oh, because we haven't really had the buzzer beaters, the 12, the 14 beating the 3. We did get that actually with Kentucky. And we should probably talk about Kentucky for a little bit before we sign off. But but we haven't seen that. But we got in the cream of the crop, and that's what you really want. Like, yeah, Cinderellas are cool, but we want to see the cream of the crop. All right. So before we sign off, and appreciate everyone who's tuned in. We got 257 people tapped in, which appreciate everyone who's watching. Kentucky, obviously, we know what happened. They got bounced early again. Coach Cal had a meeting. His job is safe. So at least for one more year, he is the coach at Kentucky. Kentucky fans probably don't want to hear that. They want his head. They're getting out his wifey. It is bad right now in Lexington. It is bad. It's nasty. That's what happens when basketball, like, it's just one focus sport. Like, hey, man, he get nasty and all that. So with that, the buyout is crazy. So $33 million buyout. Now, we've seen when what's his face from Texas A&M, Jimbo, his buyout was like 100, and they were like, "Get out of here, bro. We'll pay you." And they got stupid money over there, but they're willing to pay it. And at first I was like, man, then there's no way a school would do that. But then I'm like, hey, man, if they really feel like it, and it's Kentucky, like it's a blue blood, it's maybe the school of college basketball. If they feel like he got to go, then they'll pony up the money and let him go.
Yeah.
So, but he's safe for now. Is it the right move? Is it the right decision for Kentucky to keep Cal? And what does Cal need to do in order to not be in a situation where we're getting bounced in the first round again? Because I don't think he could survive. And it's crazy. I think it's crazy that we would even think about firing Cal and all that, but it's Kentucky, so we have to, they could be irrational sometimes. So, I know it's different, but what does he have to do to make sure he's not in the same situation again? Because, like I said, if it happens again, I can't see there's not a chance, in my opinion, that they're keeping him. That they will fire him and they'll figure out who the hell will be their next coach, even regardless of who's available. They just got to get rid of him. So, what does he have to do to make sure that don't happen again?
So I will say the athletic director, Mitch Barnhart, did make the correct decision by keeping him because, in my opinion,
and they don't like each other, right?
No, they don't.
They don't like each other.
They don't like each other. But I say it to say, BBN, Big Blue Nation, you got to rock with Cal until the wheels fall off at this point.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Because you're not going to replace him, bro. As I mentioned at the start of the show, it's only 7 coaches that have a chip right now active in the game, and Cal's one of them. And yes, it was 2015. I understand Kentucky's expectations are higher than pretty much every other program in the country. At the same time, I've been one of Cal's loudest critics. It's funny. All the stuff I've been saying is the things that Kentucky fans are just now realizing. All these years later, they thought I was hating at first, but now they realize, like, oh yeah, he's not living up to expectations. Duh. Okay. With that, again, I go back to exactly what I said earlier. You can still get your Rob Dillinghams, your Reed Shepherds, all these guys, but you got to sprinkle in a little bit more of the elder statesman because if we're being honest, Kentucky's best and most consistent player this year was Antonio Reeves, coincidentally a transfer from Illinois State. And shout out to Antonio Reeves because he had an amazing season. He probably should have been an All-American. He might have
Trey
been.
Mitchell was a transfer too, right?
Yes, from West Virginia. Yes. So you have to get your guys. In some years, I'm going to just be honest, you don't have to get a DJ Wagner. You don't have to get an Aaron Bradshaw.
The thing is, he gets the guys, but then he gets he gets too greedy. Like he didn't need DJ Wagner or Bradshaw.
No.
That was just, and I get it. You want to get everybody. You want to get everybody. Because you just want all the talent. But sometimes it's just too much. You need DJ. You got Antonio and you got Dilling. You good.
And you look at the Oakland game. What did Oakland do? Oakland does exactly what they've been doing with Campy. We play them every year because they're in the state of Michigan, right? We played them every year since I believe Izzo's been there. He's been there, and Izzo's been for 20 plus years. Campy's been there for 40 years. He runs a funky zone, right? A weird 1-3-1 that you'll never see anybody else run in the country. It's like how Boeheim had his 2-3 zone. It's just as weird and different as that, except it's a 1-3-1. And when you look at it, Cal had a whole bunch of freshmen trying to beat that zone. That's the worst recipe to trying to beat that zone. You need guys that have played in big-time college basketball games, that have played in a whole bunch of different atmospheres, venues, play styles. You need the Antonio Reeves out there. And again, they don't even have to be as good as Antonio Reeves. It's about experience, Cal. It's about experience. That's all it comes down to. And again, you can still get your top-tier guys. Next year, they're getting a great class with Jaden Quaintance and Boogie Flan. I'm looking forward to both those dudes. I think they're both going to be amazing.
Boogie's what they need. They need that toughness, man. He's from the New York area. He's from the Bronx.
Yep.
He got that toughness that they need from that guard position.
Exactly. And so you just got to get a little bit older. You don't have to bring in these deep recruit guys. Because again, nothing against him. I'm not even trying to single him out, or Aaron Bradshaw for that matter. But let's be honest, neither one of them truly boosted their draft stock this year. If anything,
Bradshaw went from maybe like a top 5 pick to I haven't seen him on the board.
Exactly. And to be fair, he did get hurt this year, right? He started off the year with the injury. So there's that. But DJ Wagner was healthy all season for the most part. He missed a couple games here and there, but like towards the back end of the season, he was pretty much not a factor in them winning games. And again, I don't want to make I'm just going in on DJ Wagner because I like DJ Wagner. I still believe in DJ Wagner. But at the end of the day, in those high pressure, high stakes situations, when you look at even some of Kentucky's biggest wins, DJ Wagner, Aaron Bradshaw weren't factors. Big Z wasn't a factor. And again, there's nothing against Big Z either because Big Z didn't play half the season because the NCAA is stupid.
Yeah,
But at the same time,
yeah.
you could have saved Aaron Bradshaw and DJ Wagner, and you could have got older with a veteran guard and a veteran big. Your two big men your three big men that you play this year all had no experience prior to this year. Between Aaron Bradshaw, Ugana barely played last year as a freshman. He's a sophomore this year, I believe. And then Big Z, none of them had experience. And you needed your front court to have at least experience. Obviously, Trey Mitchell did, right? Because he's been at UMass, West Virginia, Texas. He's been around the block. At the same time, you just got to get a little bit older, Cal. That's all it is. And you got to stop being stubborn, too. You got to stop being stubborn. Because to me, this has always been my biggest thing. People hate me for saying this, but I truly believe Cal is a bigger pioneer off the floor than he is on the floor. I still think he's a good coach. I just think you can't just go out in games and just be like, hey, my NBA talent has to be NBA talent. In theory, it sounds that simple, right? But you still have to execute. You still have to rebound. You still have to get stops. It's not just about Rob Dillingham, go get 40, you're going to win us this game. No, bro. No other team is doing that. Kansas doesn't do that to win. Baylor's not doing that to win. UConn's not doing that to win. All the top tier programs is not moving like that. It's a different game, Cal. And I know he noticed that. And I think this year, just like Izzo and just like Bill Self, they're going to sit this summer. They're going to look in that mirror. They're going to face themselves, and they're going to come back better. I guarantee you, book this clip. You're going to see all three of them guys come back better and stronger next year. Book it.
Yeah, I think, like you said, veteran coaches are going to realizing, hey, either we get with the times or we dip like the other guys did, like Roy and Coach K did. They left. They're like, we can't deal with this. No, this is too much for us right now. So you either adapt, you bounce, and those guys still want to coach, so you got to adapt. Now all those coaches are coming into next season a little bit more pressure. Things get a little more tight and all that. So they got to figure it out and all that. But I think it's right for Coach Cal to come back, give him a chance. This might be it for him, and we'll see. I don't know who's going to come back and all that. Maybe having Bradshaw or if DJ's coming back because Dillingham's gone, Shep's gone. So those, maybe Justin Edwards, maybe year two, him having them. Maybe if those guys come back, maybe they're another year of maturity and all that. That helps a lot. But I think it's right for him to come back, give him one more year, see what happens and all that. Like I said, maybe those guys come back and now you got them a year older and all that. See what happens. But yeah, it's a adapt or you got to figure it out. Because I'm sure for Izzo, if we have this again, if y'all have the same season again, then we really got to talk about it. We got to be like, hey, who's the successor? Who's the successor?
TJ Alselberger.
And we see when he's done, not a lot of talent either. He don't got crazy talent today, and we see what he could do. So it's adapt or overcome, and we'll see. But we got a great slate of games this week, guys. New coaches, new places. We'll talk more transfer portal next show. We had a lot to cover in this show, but we'll talk more about transfer. There's a couple guys in the transfer portal that are making moves. Some potential big names on the move. We'll get more into the transfer portal and all that. But Kev, another get a bucket in the books, brother.
Yes, sir, man. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, showing love, commenting, however it may be, man. I appreciate all of y'all. Y'all know where to follow me is at Kevin Mufasa 7, KEVOOMUFASA 7. Keep tuning in. Prezi, I appreciate it. Like you said, enjoy these games. Sweet 16 and Elite 8. It's going to be great. Shout out to everybody at the network too, man. And we'll talk to y'all soon.
So you can follow me Off the Ball Pod. You got the handles on the bottom. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment on the video on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. Appreciate everyone who tuned in. Whether you're watching on X, Facebook, YouTube. Make sure to like, subscribe, or wherever you are. Yeah, enjoy the games this weekend. We'll definitely get back to you beginning of next week to recap the games this weekend. Hopefully, I'm in a good mood. Hopefully we took down the Cougars and all that. But on that note, be well, be safe, take care. Peace out, guys.
Peace.